Good afternoon, and welcome to Blueprint for Efficiency, a webinar speaker series hosted by the Yale Center for Business and the Environment. My name is Ben Butterworth, and I'll be your host for this afternoon's presentation titled, A Future Vision for Sustainable E-Mobility. First, a quick word about our speaker series. The Yale Center for Business and the Environment is pleased to launch our fourth annual installment of Blueprint for Efficiency. This series of public webinars emphasizes the latest opportunities for energy efficiency. Each presentation is recorded and available through the Yale Center for Business and the Environment website. This is our final webinar of the academic year, but we will be relaunching the webinar series in September. Today's webinar will explore what is being done to accelerate the electric vehicle, or EV, market growth. You will learn about the recent work of the BMW Technology Office in four key areas: mobile apps and the EV market, EV charging infrastructure, the relationship between renewable energy and EVs, and the ability of a large EV fleet to serve as a valuable grid asset. Our speaker today from the BMW Technology Office is Peter Dempster. Peter's primary role at the BMW Technology Office is scouting for sustainable mobility technologies. He coordinates all-electric Mini E and BMW Active E user studies for the U.S. market with numerous academic partners. Peter is on the lookout for cleaner biofuels, hydrogen, and energy storage systems. As a research working group member in the PEV Collaborative, Peter is contributing to electric vehicle roadmap development at a state and federal level. His newest tasks include exploring vehicle fractional ownership models and dynamic ride sharing, evaluating the mobile applications that accelerate electric vehicle market growth, and designing home energy storage control and battery second life strategies. Lastly, we would like to remind our listeners that we welcome any questions you might have, and we will direct them to our speaker at the conclusion of the talk. You can type questions directly into the GoToMeeting chat window. A recording of the presentation will also be uploaded to our website shortly after today's talk. Please welcome Peter Dempster to Blueprint for Efficiency.
Hey, thanks, Ben, and thanks to Yale and to all of you who are attending this webinar. I really appreciate having some time to speak to a large group of people from a variety of backgrounds, and I hope that that you learned something and that I can answer some of your questions at the end of the webinar. As Ben mentioned, I'll be talking about BMW's future vision for sustainable electric mobility. But first, let me just talk a little bit about what we do at the Tech Office, our mission and our vision. First and foremost, we are a scouting office. We are the eyes and ears for the BMW Group in the Silicon Valley. We are looking out for non-automotive technologies, and we try to develop them, prototype them, and then put them in cars. And at the headquarters. So talk a little bit more about the specific areas of research and the core topics for the BMW Technology Office. We're looking out for what's hot, what's coming up next, what are the trends. We work on sustainable mobility. That's an upcoming topic, and it's one that we are investing more and more resources in. Design for user experience, connected vehicle, and lastly, driver assistance systems. And by that, I'm really referring to the vehicle is a sensor platform, and we can take advantage of that through something like automated driving and other projects like that. So in the past, the BMW Technology Office has designed a lot of very exciting products that have made it into series development. I'll give you a couple of examples. The first one is the Idrive Controller, which can be ordered with any BMW, Rolls-Royce, and Mini. And this is a human-machine interface product and it allows the driver to safely use onboard systems. This came from the aerospace sector, and it was discovered through the tech office, prototyped here, and then transferred to partners in Munich for series development. Another example is that we are as a platform, and we've created something called apps for automobile, A4A. Some examples of products that have come out of that project are the Pandora app, and Mog and some other music services that allows you to stream music using your phone and interact with it using in-car controls, like through the steering wheel or the Idrive Controller, which makes it safer to use while you're driving. One other example I wanted to highlight was our involvement with the Mini Electric, which is our first foray into electric mobility in the U.S. And for that vehicle, actually the BMW Tech Office did the scouting around the powertrain. And we found AC propulsion in 2008, developed a strategic partnership there, and eventually built 600 cars. 450 of those were in the U.S. market. And again, that was our first electric vehicle. So I'm going to be talking to you today about our 3 hypotheses for how to accelerate EV market growth from the perspective of we've done a lot of research in this area, and this is really what we believe will grow the market. And those 3 things are the connected car and mobile phone apps, charging infrastructure, that includes workplace, public, and DC fast. And we strongly believe, lastly, that that markets for renewable energy and markets for EVs will accelerate each other, and EVs can be an enabler for both renewable energy and the smart grid. So I'll be talking about those things. Before I dive in to the research and what we've done, I want to just let everyone know that that I'll be talking about 3 vehicles pretty much throughout the presentation, and those are the Mini Electric, which again was our first foray into electric mobility, and that vehicle was designed in collaboration with AC Propulsion in 2008. In 2009, those vehicles were leased to customers in the U.S. and European markets. We had 450 in the U.S. And really, this was the first time we coupled a vehicle with academic research. We partnered with UC Davis to try to understand electric vehicle user behavior around driving, charging, and also, of course, we wanted to understand the symbolic value and other values around electric vehicles. At the end of 2011, we introduced the Active-E, which is our second lithium-ion battery electric vehicle for the U.S. That is a converted 1 series with a BMW powertrain. The battery came from a joint venture between Samsung and Bosch called SB Automotive. But the powertrain, all the power electronics, including inverter, charger, even the electric motor, and construction of the battery pack, or assembly of the battery pack, that was all done by BMW Group. So it was really our first electric vehicle where we were trying to learn about the powertrain itself, build everything from scratch. And again, we coupled this with a user study, and I'll be quoting some of the results of that user study, which we did in January of this year, so it's really up to date. We have 700 vehicles in the U.S. market, and 630 of those are in private customer hands, and 70 of those are in a car-sharing program in San Francisco called Drive Now. And then the last vehicle that I'll be talking about is the i3. And the i3 is the first purpose-built electric vehicle from BMW. It is through the I brand, which is an entirely new sub-brand for BMW, much like M. And this sub-brand isn't just about vehicles. It's really about sustainable mobility solutions. So everything from electric vehicles themselves to services around them, mobility services, car sharing, and other things that will enable people to have sustainable mobility solutions at their fingertips. So that is the third angle that I'll be talking about. Let's jump right in to some things that we learned from the Mini-E field trial. As I mentioned, this was a project that we did in collaboration with UC Davis with 450 vehicle drivers in the U.S., split between the East and West Coast. And we found that drivers of this vehicle developed 3 new areas of value around electric drive. And those 3 new areas of value are the intersection of clean and fun, the idea that this car is extremely fun to drive because of the torque, because of the strong regenerative braking, because of the low center of gravity, and the smoothness, and other things, the feeling of going very fast, and at the same time being very clean. And that was, we've opened the car, strong area of value. The other area is expansion of energy use. This idea that EV drivers are learning about what is a kilowatt versus what is a kilowatt hour, how are they different, understanding of costs of energy, efficiency, how to drive more efficiently by accelerating in a different way, using regen braking to really recoup energy and understanding how that works. And the other thing is that EV drivers or E drivers are translating that mastery of energy use to other areas of their life. They're driving their gasoline car more efficiently, replacing light bulbs and things like that. I'll be talking about that later. And the third area of value is developing an EV territory, a clean driving territory. The idea that you want to expand the territory in which you drive, and you can do that by finding charging opportunities, calling other Mini-E drivers and saying, I would like to use your garage on Saturdays. Is that acceptable? Joining social networks to do that, and really form a community around the electric vehicle. And also understanding the geography. So our drivers were figuring out what is the flattest way to my final destination. So a little bit about how Mini-E drivers adapted to this new technology and how they innovated and were able to expand that driving territory. A little bit about their home fleet. First of all, our Mini-E drivers were required to have at least one other car. And what happened was a lot of these drivers had 2 cars at home. They replaced 1 car with the Mini-E. And most of the trips were completed by the Mini-E with the exception of trips that couldn't be done because of cargo space or lack of seating. But then they started to replace or displace some of the trips of the second car with Mini-E because it's so much fun to drive and because it's cheaper and some other interesting things. It was novel, it's unique. In 2009, there were no other EVs on the road. And then they started to really expand that driving area. So as they became more comfortable with the range of the car, then their activity space was expanded. And so that's something that we learned about these drivers is that in addition to forming all these new values, they really changed the way they thought about their own mobility. And it definitely changed the way they use their cars at their home. So a little bit about range anxiety and charging behavior. What we thought was that customers would experience range anxiety pretty infrequently, and we were right. So over the lease period, how many times are you uncertain about making it to your destination? Most drivers experience that less than 6 times in the entire year. And what happens when they experience range anxiety? They just changed their driving behavior. They accelerated in a different way. They went a little bit slower. They air conditioner, etc. And then we asked them about charging the Mini E, and most people standard for charging hadn't been created down the when our drivers are plugging in, the state of charge is 40 to 60%. So when we asked our customers how far do you drive to go to work, most of them said that it was less than 40 miles, as we expected from all the other studies that have tried to figure out this driving behavior of American customers. And then we asked them, how far are you reliably able to drive? And nearly all of them said 80 to 100 miles. And so we see that it fits into their lifestyle very well. So on this topic of increasing awareness, energy use in and out of the car. This is really an important concept, and it's really about this idea of mastering of energy use and understanding of energy. So, or masters here that our customers were changing their behaviors at home, driving their gasoline car in a more efficient way, and paying more attention to the resources that they're using in the car, air conditioner, etc. Okay, so onto our hypotheses here about how we can accelerate EV growth. The connected car and mobile phone apps are incredibly important. We're certain about this. When we ask our BMW electric car customers, and these are the active E customers, the current customers who have had the car for over 1 year, 73% of them use apps to connect to their vehicle, to see state of charge, to precondition the car, and to see when the charging is going to be complete, and other things like that. We asked them about using smartphone apps to locate public chargers. The Active E is the first vehicle that we produced that is able to use public charging, and 88% said that they use apps to find chargers. And this chart on the right is showing which apps they use. Of course, we're really excited to see that more than 80% of them use the Charge Point app. BMW made a large investment in charge points, and so we're very happy that our customers are using that service. And then we see the second most used app by our customers is PlugShare, which is pretty interesting because that's a small startup in Palo Alto. I really like that company, and they incorporate not only public chargers available in large networks like ChargePoint and Blink and others, but they additionally include residential chargers, people who just want to be part of this movement, help out other EV drivers by allowing them to charge at their garage. So what did we do with all of our learnings about how our customers use apps and what kind of services they want? We built a charger finder for the Active E, which gives our customers real-time availability information. And the reason that is important is because you don't want to navigate to a charger that's occupied, because the charger might be occupied for 6 or 7 or 8 hours. And so we built this app. It was initially sort of a hack of an app that we used for another purpose. It was done at the tech office, and we used availability APIs from charging networks like Ecotality's Blink and Coulom's ChargePoint and others to aggregate and to show real-time availability of chargers. And this is the first time it's been done in any electric vehicle is the Active-E. And here's an example of a parking garage in San Francisco. And as you can see, the status is free, meaning that nobody's there. It's available for use. And we've also included some notes on the station, where it is and where you should enter. This information is really important because in a lot of scenarios, you have the charger is only accessible from one entrance in the garage. So because we've learned so much about our customers and our behavior, and we've talked to them so much through focus groups and surveys and things like that, we've realized that these things are very important to our customers, providing real-time information about availability and other information that really gives them the necessary tools to find a charger. So we aren't just concerned about charging and connecting to the vehicle. We're also investing in and developing new tools for people to navigate cities and to use mobility services. And Drive Now is a great example of a car sharing program. As I mentioned, we're piloting this in San Francisco. So please join if you're going to be traveling to the city. It's a great way to get around. It is a point-to-point car sharing service which has a fleet of Active-Es. They're electric 1 Series vehicles. And it's a very efficient way to get around. It's a very cost-effective way to get around. Because it's point-to-point, you can go from the airport to the city, from the city down to Google or Palo Alto. So check out that app and sign up for the program, and you'll get to drive a really cool car if you're in San Francisco. My City Way is a one-stop shop for navigating a city. We have that app is available for a bunch of cities, including New York City. Park at My House, which is a marketplace for parking. It is a peer-to-peer parking sharing service, and we've made an investment in that, and we'll be incorporating that into BMW apps and products in the future, so we're very excited about it. I'm going to be talking about the importance of charging infrastructure. As I mentioned, that is our second hypothesis about how we can accelerate EV market growth. So if we look at Active-E charging behavior, it's done basically on a daily basis, average charging events per week, 8 times. And where are Active-E customers charging? Mostly at home, just as we found with the Mini-E, and just as many of the policy communities and academic communities have hypothesized in the past on where people will charge. 75% of it is happening at home, 25% of it is happening elsewhere, and that it is mostly, the elsewhere part is mostly charging at work, and then public charging, level 2, which is 3 to 7 kilowatts. The Active-E doesn't have a DC fast charging port. When we ask our customers if that's important to them in future BMW electric vehicles, of course they all say yes. Fast charging is, in my opinion, one of the most premium features of any electric vehicle. And we are going to be incorporating the combo connector for DC fast charging on the i3, which is, again, our first full production purpose-built electric vehicle, which will be coming to the U.S. market at the end of this year. And one of the reasons that we are really interested in DC fast charging and other other charging opportunities is that it increases what we call the utility factor. And we are going to be pursuing a strategy of a portfolio of electric vehicles, including plug-in hybrid vehicles, and an interesting concept called the BEV-X, which is our range-extended EV. It is not like the Volt, because the Volt can actually power the wheels through the gasoline engine. The range-extended electric vehicle has no connection between the range extender and the part that drives the wheels. And so this vehicle will essentially double the range of the i3, and it'll be an option much like a sunroof. This is a pretty interesting concept for us. It's in between what we're calling a PHEV 80 and a PHEV 90. In this project, I'm showing this graphic. This is a project that we did with Jamie Davies, who was at Idaho National Lab and UC Davis, and he studies this topic of how people drive and charge. The project was done also with a variety of other team members, someone who specializes in GIS and charging infrastructure placement, someone who specializes in vehicle simulation and modeling, and someone who studies consumer behavior, people who actually drive and charge electric vehicles. And what we found is that we can really increase the utility factor, or the amount of all electric miles, substantially in the 80 to 90 mile all electric range extended vehicle. And for the PHEV 80, for example, we can increase the utility factor of that vehicle from 85% to 95%. By incorporating fast charging and public and workplace charging opportunities. So we see those as being very important in increasing carbon emissions, decreasing costs and gasoline use for a variety of different plug-in hybrid designs. And lastly, I'd like to talk about workplace charging, and we believe that this is incredibly important. Workplace charging and a car plugged into it is a conversation piece, and workers can talk to each other about their electric car experience and parking lots, and the fact that these chargers are occupied shows that that EVs are here. We think that workplace charging is really going to accelerate EV growth. And we put in 3 chargers in front of our office. We commissioned them in October. Since then, we've had 640 charges and 4,700 kilowatt hours total, and we average about 25 kilowatt hours per day. We have a lot of plug-in hybrid Toyotas and Nissan Leafs and Volts and Teslas and other vehicles that are plugging in, and we're very happy to see the EV community grow around our office. And when we talk to people who are plugging in at our office, they all say the same thing. I learned from a colleague that the electric vehicle would fit my needs in terms of mobility. I saw this charger and I thought this is pretty interesting and I'd like to charge at work. And so, again, we really believe that this is going to accelerate EV adoption. So we're very pro-workplace charging. And also, it's mentioning that a workplace charger sees heavy evening and weekend use. And that's important because we think of it as a workplace charger, but actually it turns into a public charger. And we're located here in Mountain View near Google. People who are coming to see concerts at Shoreline Amphitheater will plug in and use our charger on evenings and during the weekends. So it's a great investment, it's a research tool, and it's accelerating EV growth. I'm going to be talking about renewable energy in EVs because it's incredibly important to me. I think that this is a really important topic from the perspective of this is a really disruptive idea, and I'm going to be talking about why that is. So markets for green energy and electric vehicles can accelerate each other. That's our belief. And why do we think this? Okay, it's not just that 30% of active E-drivers invested in solar and 40% of mini E-drivers invested in solar by the end of the program. It's that we looked at, we did a novel study, and I'll be talking about that in a couple of slides, where we had people building cars and building green energy packages, and it was a nationwide survey. And what we found is that when you combine the two, an electric vehicle and solar, or an electric vehicle and wind or other renewable energy, and you combine it in one package, $500 a month or something like that, we managed to increase demand for EV designs and the choice of an EV design by 23% among conventional vehicle buyers. And that's a pretty interesting idea, that if you combine things together, that clicks with people. So an electric car by itself is interesting, renewable energy, solar, whatever, is pretty interesting, but you combine the two, and people who would have bought conventional vehicles will buy EVs. That's a really important topic. And we believe also that a portfolio approach to green energy is really important. We're pursuing that. And we've seen that solar, wind, and other sources of energy are valued differently by our customers. We also believe that intelligent charging of electric vehicles can enable more green energy. So again, what did we learn from mini E-drivers in Germany, in the UK? Many of them think it's very important to use renewable energy for EVs. 89% in the UK, 96% in Germany, and it was very high also in the US. We found the US mini E-drivers preferred solar and wind energy over other sources of energy. They're not very excited about coal-powered EVs, nor are we. We did a project in Germany with a large utility, Vattenfall. And basically what we did was we had a communication link between the utility and BMW backend where we got information about a wind availability and a wind profile and a wind prediction. And then we got information also from our EV drivers about their mobility calendar. So when are they leaving in the morning, and what is the minimum amount of energy that they can have in their vehicle to fulfill their mobility needs. And then what we did was we combined all of that information, including information about the battery state of charge and health in the vehicle, and we came up with a charging profile that took advantage of more wind. And we reduced CO2 emissions and showed that you could, in fact, take advantage of excess wind or higher wind by using the electric vehicle as a flexible load. And we're pursuing that strategy in some of our series products, and they're in the form of intelligent charging, which will hopefully not only increase the amount of renewable energy that electric vehicles use, but also lower costs. So we've been experimenting here at the tech office with solar. and we're in the process of installing 100 kilowatts on the roof. In the meantime, we've developed a tool to visualize electricity generation from our solar array. And then we're also collecting data from our EV charging events and matching them up and saying, okay, how many kilowatt hours have we used through charging? How many kilowatt hours have we produced through solar? And it allows us to visualize this information in a new and interesting way. This bottom line, energy produced over the last 30 days is equivalent to this many miles in the Active-E, is really, when we show that to our customers, it receives a very positive reaction, and so we've incorporated that into our products that I'll be talking about in the next couple of slides. Okay, going back to this novel study that we did with our partners at UC Davis and Simon Fraser University. We held focus groups with our Mini E drivers, regular Mini drivers, and green electricity program participants. These are people who bought green energy through their utility or who bought home solar for their roof in a variety of markets, LA, New York, New Jersey. And then we took the learning, the themes, the language, etc. from the focus groups and created a large nationwide survey of new car buyers, which included hybrid buyers, SUV buyers, and electric vehicle owners. And that didn't just include BMW, it included Nissan and GM and others. And we completed this in July. And this is what we heard. Our customers are coming up with very interesting ideas for combining green energy and electric vehicles, like packages of green power, much like a utility might do. Maybe installing a large solar array in the desert or a wind farm, and then somehow supplying that electricity to our drivers, and maybe a partnership with a solar provider. And what did we design? We designed a very interesting couple of products for our Active-E drivers based on what we learned. The first one is a renewable energy certificates package, and we partnered with Green Mountain Energy to come up with a wind power package that corresponds to the amount of energy that the Active-E uses in a 2-year period, with some mechanism for topping up at the end of the lease. The cost is $48, and really this gives our customers a choice about their source of energy. This idea, we can't take full credit for this. This came out of some conversations with the Natural Resources Defense Council and the Center for Resource Solutions. It helped us really put this package together. So, we've also partnered with a solar developer, Real Goods, to come up with a home solar option for the Active-E. We have lease and purchase options, so the customer can fully own the assets, or they can enter into a power purchase agreement. And it's really a turnkey solution for zero emission charging. As I mentioned before, we know that we're successful because 30% of our Active-E drivers have invested in renewable energy. And so we're very encouraged by that result. Okay, a little bit on EVs and their interaction with the grid and how they can enable the smart grid and more renewable energy. Our goals as a company are to supply EVs with renewable energy. We want to, of course, protect our customers from any undesired actions. But by that I mean that we want our customers' mobility needs to be met first and foremost. And so in order to do that, the customer needs full control, and they can do that. We can ensure that that is the case. We would like to maintain control of communication to the vehicle, down to the actual vehicle itself from our servers, and access to those batteries. Of course, we want to know how they're doing, and we can monitor the state of health of those batteries, and that enables us to have a very premium product and service. So, and of course, we want to explore sustainable business models with solutions that we can deploy worldwide. And a little bit about the research that we're doing at the BMW Technology Office in Mountain View. We have intelligent charging demonstrations where we've demonstrated time of use rates and demand response. And the way we do that is we're able to communicate directly to the vehicle over power line communication or over a wireless communication. We have some special hardware that we've installed in development vehicles that allows us to do this. And we can really control charging based on time of use rates from the utility. So we can have an aggregated time of use rate calculator, and that can be getting data from directly from utilities on when it's cheapest to charge, and then we can send that to the car, create a charging profile that saves our customers money. And of course, early on, it's important that we reduce the total cost of ownership of electric vehicles. So this is very important. Demand response is a service, an ancillary service for the grid, and we think that it's going to be very important in the future. So we need to enable that in our vehicles, and so we're demonstrating that. As I mentioned before, we did a project with Vattenfall to incorporate more wind in vehicle charging. We are forecasting EV availability through map models. We're feeding real-world data into these machine learning algorithms and trying to figure out if we can predict when people are plugging in. This is important to understand the fleet behavior, because it will impact the products and services that we design in the future around the electric vehicle. And then we're doing market simulations, energy market simulations. So we have the largest vehicle-to-grid field trial in Delaware with NRG, EV2G, that's the company, and the University of Delaware and other partners. We have, I believe, we're having up to 90 mini-E's in that field trial. We're very excited about it. And then in parallel, we're participating in California ISO, that's the grid operator here, in those market simulations for future products with real-world electric vehicle data. And these would be ways that the electric vehicle as a flexible load can help the grid to maintain stability, to maintain the frequency, and ways that we can enable higher use of renewable energy and development of more renewable energy resources. But EV energy services require a very unique communication solution. And that's one thing we've learned and have actively developed it and tested it. So of course we need secure connections between the utility or the grid operator and possibly a third-party aggregator. We need a secure connection between that aggregator and the BMW backend, which is in Munich. And the secure connection to via GSM to the vehicle has already been created, and that's how we provide services like My BMW Remote, where people can connect using their phone and see the how much fuel they have and other things, and set preconditioning of the car to make it warm in the winter when they get in the car, or to warm up the battery so they don't have decreased range, etc. Those services are already available. And then we're trying to understand the connections between the EV charger and the vehicle. And we have a couple of ways to do that, so we're experimenting there. And the connection to the home area network, the smart meter, those are areas that we're working in currently, trying to understand and how they're different in different places. But only when you have all of those pieces, and of course information from the customer, about when they're going to be driving. That's also very important. Can you really make decisions about EVs interacting with the electricity grid to, for example, provide frequency regulation, or to increase the load or do demand response, to enable more renewable energy, or to maintain stability of the grid. So some final thoughts here, and I think I'm basically coming up to the last 10 minutes, so this is perfect. Final thoughts are that electric vehicles are incredibly disruptive, and I believe that's why they're going to succeed. They are refueled at home. You have the emissions from them are totally decoupled from onboard fuel consumption, which has some challenges and some opportunities. You have very low maintenance costs. Those we're trying to understand through field trials. And EV owners are really going to be more connected to their vehicle. They want to master energy. They're using smartphone apps to connect to the car, to find out where charging stations might be, and to do other functions. And finally, because of the connectedness, because of the connected car, the electric vehicle can really be a home and a grid asset, and we're trying to understand both of those things. For the home, that can mean that electric vehicles can provide uninterruptible power supply in the event of something like Hurricane Sandy, or you might want to run your refrigerator for a few days. Maybe the electric vehicle can help with that. Maybe you have home solar and you'd like to take more advantage of that through intelligent charging. As a grid asset, these vehicles can provide a variety of high-value services to maintain grid frequency and other important aspects. And this is something that we're exploring very heavily in our research. Electric vehicles are totally different from the gasoline car. And for example, you drive into your garage with a gas car, and you turn it off because otherwise it will kill you, because it's producing carbon monoxide, etc. When you drive an EV into your home, it comes alive, and it becomes part of your home, and you're connected to it in novel ways. So that's pretty much where I'll leave it. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'm very happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay, thanks, Pete. Our first question comes from David, and David asks, what role do you see dynamic electricity rates having in EV integration and implementation? For example, hourly or market-based rates or time-of-use rates. And do you envision regulation or utilities encouraging off-peak demand with monetary incentives?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing that now. There's a great field trial in San Diego where they're experimenting with different rate options in electric vehicles to see how it influences the time at which people charge. And it does influence the timing of charging. And that's important. We think that that markets are moving in that direction. Markets for electricity are moving in that direction. And that's a further opportunity for EVs because it means that they can charge at a lower rate. And again, this decreases the total cost of ownership of EVs. But from a utility perspective, this is important because it allows for better grid stability, load leveling, and other things that really enable lower energy costs and lower emissions from electricity for all of society. So we think that it is going to accomplish, dynamic electricity rates are going to accomplish a lot of things.
Okay, great. Our next question comes from Colin. Colin asks, do you see other energy storage devices penetrating the automotive vehicle market, such as Flywheels and a series hybrid platform? And will BMW pursue the compressed natural gas or liquefied petroleum gas vehicle market in the U.S.?
Yeah, that's a great question, Colin. And the answer is that we are definitely not pursuing, just the electric vehicle as the silver bullet and the only solution for sustainable mobility. We are also, in parallel, pursuing hydrogen and fuel cells. We've had in the past supercap hybrid designs and fuel cell electric designs and also flywheel designs. We're not currently pursuing flywheels. But with respect to your question about natural gas, this is a particularly important question because of the shale revolution that we're seeing in the U.S. It is driving natural gas costs down. Our view is that this is going to be important for industries like long-haul trucking, and but perhaps will be less important for light-duty passenger vehicles. And so we haven't made any decisions at this point to, sorry, are you guys seeing this message anyway? We are pursuing a natural gas vehicle at this point, and that might change in the future, but that's our view now.
Okay, thanks. The next question is from Zoe, and Zoe's asks, is there any energy loss associated with the fast charging features? And in addition, could you talk about how much more it costs to equip EVs for DC charging?
Yeah, that's a great question, Zoe, and I don't have an answer for you, and this is something that we could follow up with over email in terms of energy losses through DC fast charging. I'm not certain what those losses are and how they compare to level 2 AC charging, and the costs of DC fast charging. This is an important topic because it's one of the reasons why we engaged with SAE on a DC fast charging standard. We can reduce the cost of that connector and of the installation of that port on the vehicle by combining level 2 and DC fast charger into one connector port. And as opposed to the CHAdeMO designed connector, which requires the J1772 and CHAdeMO ports on the vehicle. So we believe that that is the best strategy, to have one single charging port. With the addition of 2 DC pins, we can do DC fast charging, and that does not substantially increase the cost of the vehicle.
Okay, thanks. Our next question is from Priscilla, and she asks, please explain why BMW is investing in parking space sharing service. How does this fit into your business model, and do you think the company will also integrate into selling energy?
That's really an excellent question. And you can see that the whole mentality of BMW is really changing. Based on our investments, we have a venture group now called BMW I Ventures. They're in New York City, and they're making investments in these new mobility services. There's a simple reason for all of this stuff: parking, car sharing, possible investments in peer-to-peer car sharing, and our investments and projects in the renewable energy space. And that is, there are really 2 answers there. Personal car ownership we believe that is changing. And when we look into the future in 2050, even 2025, the way people buy cars and pursue mobility is completely changing. And we're recognizing that and jumping in really early with field trials, investing in car sharing, in companies that have parking solutions. And we think that, that because mobility is changing and changing in that direction, that we need to make investments, big investments in mobility services. And we're not considered a car company anymore. That's the other thing. Our CEO is constantly referring to BMW as a mobility provider, and that is a major corporate shift. With respect to renewable energy, this is obviously very important for our production that we use renewable energy, and that's because we can reduce the volatility of our energy costs, which helps our financial planning as a company, and gives us stable energy prices for the future. But also our customers really demand it. Sustainable is premium, and so we realize that, and that's why we've made big investments in a carbon fiber facility in Moses Lake, Washington. We made a $100 million investment in that facility, which is able to use hydroelectricity. We have invested huge amounts of money in exploring hydrogen and landfill gas to hydrogen projects at our Spartanburg facility. Half of the energy used by that facility comes from a landfill. And when was the last time you heard of landfill gas price volatility? It's never happened. So we're convinced that that's a great investment. And then wind power in Leipzig, where we produce the i3, enables us to produce the car in a cost-effective way, reduces energy price volatility, and lowers emissions on a life cycle basis of our electric vehicles.
Okay, thanks, Pete. It's 1 o'clock now. Do you have a couple more minutes to answer questions?
I do, sure, until someone kicks me out of my conference room.
Okay, sounds good. Our next question is from David, and David is concerned about EVs crashing the grid during peak demand and wants to know how this can be avoided.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I mentioned a bunch of times this idea of EVs can help grid, maintain the stability of the grid, etc. We have the possible issue of EVs plugging in at 5 p.m. when everybody gets home, or 6 p.m. And those are really that's a peak hour for electricity in pretty much all markets. And so this goes back to that question that I got earlier about electricity rate mechanisms for changing behavior around charging. We believe that by allowing the customer to charge when electricity is cheapest and providing tools for that, that we will, in addition, accomplish the goal of people charging during off-peak hours, which will have a net benefit for the grid instead of a possible negative impact on the grid.
Okay, and our next question comes from Marco. With EVs, how much revenues does BMW expect from selling the vehicle versus services offered with the vehicle? For example, apps, PVs, offsets, etc. And do you expect all revenues to come from the customer or also from other sources such as reselling fees, advertising, etc.?
Yeah, Marco, that's an excellent question. And I think you're getting at something that we've been thinking about a lot, which is that, okay, these vehicles aren't going to come in for service very often. If you look at the maintenance schedule, it's like replace air filter, 15,000 miles, 30,000 miles, check brake fluid. These cars really won't have major problems, and that's excellent. But on the other hand, we need to generate revenue from electric mobility and sustainable mobility, and that's why we're looking into ways to monetize things, ways to earn money through renewable energy. That's one product that actually generates revenue for us currently. Well, also saving the driver money. And other services, Connected Drive service, or My BMW Remote app, which allows the customer to connect to the car and do things like preconditioning. Right now, I believe that we've offered that for free for 10 years. So that's really not going to make us any money. But we're pretty certain that we can find sustainable business models for this car. And some of those might include battery second life, which really is possibly an important market for us. So the batteries, once they have depleted and do not contain more than 80% of their original capacity, might be used in other markets. And right now, we have batteries that have come out of vehicles, and we're installing them at solar arrays and at our business parks and in smart grids to understand how those batteries can really help the grid, can also provide revenue for BMW. Maybe we sell the batteries to a third-party aggregator, or we build our own products. We're not sure about that. So we're exploring a lot of different business models, and we're continuing to explore renewable energy as a business opportunity for BMW. I can't really say too much about it, but it's we've learned a lot. It is considered a core competence for BMW now that we've done a lot of development in that area. And so we're exploring that as a way to generate revenue as well.
Okay, I think we're going to end with a question from Mike. Mike wants to know what has been the response from utilities? In some communities, utilities are concerned with EV and at-home chargers. These chargers can overwhelm the neighborhood transformers supporting the homes in the area.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question, and thanks for asking. We are working hand in hand with utilities for the rollout of EVs, and initially that was actually, with the customer's permission, sending a spreadsheet saying, this is where our customers are going to be, and the utility would go out and proactively check the transformer, the neighborhood transformer, etc. We have electricians that are going out into the garage and looking at the panel capacity and making suggestions there as well to the utility on what needs to be done to upgrade the grid. Utilities are generally excited, at least in California. I think a lot of the East Coast utilities are very excited about EVs. But we really need to work closely with them in rolling out these cars, and I would say that it's really changing the relationship that we have to energy providers. EVs are, and so we can collaborate, cooperate, come up with solutions that work for us both, and they are a really important part of moving sustainable electric mobility forward. And so, again, we're working hand in hand with them.
Okay, well, that concludes the talk today with the BMW Technology Office. We would like to thank Peter for joining us this afternoon. This talk will be made available through the Yale Center for Business and the Environment website. All Blueprint for Efficiency links are under the Outreach tab. Our webinar series will continue in September. Please stay tuned. We thank you all for joining us for Blueprint for Efficiency. This is Ben Butterworth from the Yale Center for Business and the Environment saying so long from New Haven, Connecticut.